All right, so today we're going to be talking about the concept of the best defense is a good offense. So I'm actually going to change up how we're thinking about that. So there's one way of thinking about it, which is the best way to be defensive is to actually keep your opponent on the defensive. And what that means is I'm continuously pushing forward so that my opponent doesn't have the time to set up their own attacks. Right? There's a handful of people within Jiu-Jitsu history and even now who have been killers at that, whether it's Jeff Gulliver and Marcelo, to the Rotello brothers now, Gio Martinez, who they continually push the pace and are working on Kazushi to off-balance their opponent or continually firing off attacks so that their opponent can't even start working up game of their own. Right? So that's one way to think about it. Right? Another way to think about it is knowing the offense so much that even when you're playing a defensive position, you now know what you need to focus on. Right? So we're going to use that example when we start thinking about leg locks. Right? So to oversimplify leg locks, the most dominant ones, you need 3 points of control, if you will, right? For the most, once again, dominant ones, relatively speaking, right? So you want to have a hip pin, right? The hip being pinned, whether it's by a leg entanglement, the ground, or even gravity, if you will, right? You need to have a knee line controlled, right? And obviously isolating a foot of some sort, right? If you want to think of straight ankle locks, heel hooks, whether inside or outside, knee bars, or even calf slicers for that much, those are somewhat, if you think about it, really the things that you need to have, right? So by understanding what your opponent needs to attack you, right, those 3 points, from the defensive position, you now know what you need to start being able to take apart, right? So the example we're going to use is our opponent in a honey hole or inside sankaku position, right? So if our opponent is in the honey hole and they hit a back step on you, right, our first thing we want to be doing is tucking the heel that they'll be looking for the inside heel hook, right? After that, we want to start fighting the hands, right? We're going to start fighting the hands, grabbing one on the other, and then we want to pull our opponent to the opposite side, right? We're pulling that opponent onto the opposite side because now, not only are we tucking that heel, right, which is that one of the 3 parts, we're also now relieving the hip pin that the opponent initially established with that back step, right? So keeping the heel tucked, so we're protecting 1 point, relieving the pressure, right, off the top hip is now 2 points, which is now making them a lot weaker. With that said, our opponent still has our knee line. So the next goal is to get into a sprinter stance. So what we'd like to do is place the palm or the thumb into their knee pit, right, as we push and turn away into a sprinter stance to slip the knee line. At this point, the only thing your opponent may have should be potentially your ankle, right? With that said, we're making sure we're keeping our weight back, so it makes it more difficult for our opponent to regather that knee line, right? So now the only thing they have, once again, is that foot. The knee line is passed, your hip is up, and now we can turn through all the way to completely pass that position, right? So once again, truly knowing an attack in order to be defensive, right? So the best defense is a good offense, not only from the standpoint of being proactive and constantly attacking your opponent, but also from the concept of really diving in and knowing all the components of an attack so that you can properly defend yourself.